live. This is Law Call.
Welcome to Law Call. I'm attorney Chris Young with the law firm of Perry & Young, and tonight we're taking your questions live. So if you've got a legal question, give us a call. We'd be glad to try to give you an answer to it and try to steer you in the right directions. The phone lines are always open, 850-392-1544. If you don't feel comfortable coming on air, you can always email us your questions at lawcall@wmbb.com. So tonight's topic is Ask Us Anything, and I've got a great friend with me tonight who has probably been on the show more than any other guest that we've had. It's Doug Smith. Hold your applause right to the end of the show. Is that it, Doug?
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to say this, Chris. I went to the closet because you and I have this connection, and the LSU tie came out of the closet because
LSU Tigers.
LSU Tigers.
Right.
They can't stop anyone, but they've still won a lot of games. So I'm just saying.
Well, as long as we can't stop winning, that's a good thing. Doug.
Exactly.
Okay.
There you
go. But anyways, it was a great time last night in Death Valley, and
Yeah.
I was glad we pulled out the win. And so we've got
Love it.
We got a big road ahead of us. But anyways, enough about football, Doug. Let's talk
Yeah.
about legal issues. And if you have a question, Doug practices in a lot of different areas besides personal injury, like we do as a firm. So real estate, property, insurance defense, contractor issues. If you can stump him, please call him because he loves hard questions. But Doug, we were just talking moments before going on the air, and you're talking about a contractor issue. Now, I didn't get to ask you, was that a contractor issue from Hurricane Michael?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
so
sir.
we're 5 years almost to post to the date, or beyond the date, actually.
That's right.
And you're still dealing with a contractor issue from Hurricane Michael, and you're still battling those whoever did not do what they were supposed to pursuant to their contract.
Yes, sir. That's right. And I tell you, I think there's nothing more that the judges would like to. The judges would like to close the book on Hurricane Michael cases, but they're still out there because civil cases they sometimes take time. And other than Hurricane Michael, we had a little something called COVID that kind of slowed down the judicial process too. So I mean, we've really been through a lot. But yeah, I still have a few of those. How about you? You got a few Hurricane Michael?
We have a few left, but
I bet you do.
We are as anxious as our clients to get those resolved for them because they are. It's sad to see what the insurance company is still doing, no matter what you try to do to get clients compensated. Yeah. But anyways, we have a email question that's already come in tonight, and if we could get that up on the frame. My daughter got in a fight at school. It wasn't her fault, and I think the administrators were more concerned about discipline than her injuries. I had to take her to the doctor the next day. Is there anything I can do to get reimbursed for the bill, Colleen? Well, Doug, that's a really good question because not only does it deal with personal injury, it deals with something with the school board. And it deals with whether or not the school board has a policy in place that would actually reimburse the parents for the injury sustained of the child at the school. So, Colleen, what I would actually do is make sure that your child is okay, number one. If she needs further follow-up treatment, make sure that you contact your treating physician and for whatever injuries that she may or may have not sustained. But also, follow it with the school board. The school board should have a policy in place that will pay for any type of medical expenses up to a certain number. I think it's a low ceiling, I think maybe of like $5,000 that will potentially compensate you for the medical bills that you've had to pay out. Anything beyond that, the school board may refuse to pick up, and you may have a little litigation or civil action on your hand to where you actually have to file a claim either against the school board or against the children that were involved in the case. So it can get really sketchy on something like that. But if I were you, I would try to keep it simple. I hope your daughter's okay, and I would turn those bills into the school board and ask for reimbursement of those expenses. Doug, let's ask us anything.
Yeah.
Can I ask you anything?
Absolutely, Chris.
Legally, though, right?
Okay.
Legally.
I was hoping. Anyway, yes. Go right ahead. Go ahead.
What are you seeing more come through your practice now with? What I'm leading up to is, I guess I should ask you this. Are you seeing more and more cases resulting from financial distress like we saw maybe 15 years ago when the economy really took a tank? Because now interest rates are up. People are probably having a hard time paying some of their payments on some of their secondary or third properties. And are you seeing any of those claims being filed yet, foreclosure claims?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I really haven't seen too much of that increasing. And probably our mutual friend Mike Wynn, we should ask.
Yes.
Our bankruptcies on the increase. I'm not sure. I don't do debtor bankruptcy work, but I have noticed that because real estate prices are still high, and frankly, when people have equity in their home, in other words, even if it's tough making those mortgage payments, they're going to darn well try to do it if they're sitting on an equity cushion,
Right.
which most are.
Right.
And we're not seeing a huge uptick in condo and homeowner association assessment cases because, back when the real estate collapsed and there were all these foreclosures, what did the debtors also not pay? The condominium assessments and the homeowner assessments. Right. So there was a whole lot of lien work back then on those. And thankfully, we haven't seen a huge increase in that. And I think it's because property values are still high.
Now, Doug, an interesting question. It came through our office last week, and it had to do with a mortgage. And someone had a mechanics lien. Basically, they did work on the property, and the property owner failed to pay them for whatever reason, so they filed a foreclosure action against the property to get paid. Now, unbeknownst to the person who actually filed, who was owed the money, there's a forced mortgage on the property. There seems to be a lot of equity in the property. If the person that actually is owed the money for the work, we call it, I guess, a mechanics lien, something like that. Construction lien.
Yeah.
When he forecloses, does he assume, do you foreclose the first mortgager out of the property?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think so.
Okay.
I would think it would be, but this is one where, these after 34 years of doing this, I still like to look it up. I'm never 100% sure of anything these days, but in general, remember the first mortgage was already recorded.
Right.
It was recorded before this construction lien ever came. So normally, but under your scenario, if the construction lien actually, if it gets all the way to foreclosure, judgment, and there's a sale, if there's equity in the property, there'll be buyers out there still wanting to buy. And then, of course, they'll talk to the first mortgagee and say, I'd like to assume or whatever, or they'll refinance and get it paid off because they're looking at that equity. And the main thing is, though, for gosh sake, a construction lien, don't let it get that far.
Right.
I mean, if someone files construction lien against your property and they're threatening to foreclose, go to a lawyer, call a law firm.
Because those type of liens actually have teeth. They attach to the property.
Yeah, but there's also a lot of nitpicky rules that have to be followed. I mean, what if it's got to be done within 90 days, right?
And it also has to be legitimate too, because during the Hurricane Michael, there were a lot of liens that were filed by contractors that were not legitimate, and the courts deemed them to be illegitimate liens and actually punished individuals for filing those liens inappropriately against the properties.
And what you're talking about are fraudulent liens, and that's in Chapter 713. I think it's point 31, I think. But in a fraudulent lien situation where if the contractor's not paying attention and they just say, it's $200,000 job and we're owed $200,000, and then the evidence is, well, they've been paid $50,000. I mean, what's wrong? What's wrong with this picture? Right. It could be a fraudulent lien. They can get punitive damages against them.
Well, the reason, and one of the ways that you determine whether or not it's a fraudulent lien or not is you go hire an attorney. So for all of our listeners out there, if you have a lien that's been filed against your property, do not assume that it's not something legitimate. And go seek an attorney and seek the advice, because, like Doug said, it could be legitimate and you could definitely owe it and get foreclosed out of a property. Or secondarily, it could be that it's a fraudulent lien and it doesn't need to attach on the piece of property.
And like you said, Chris, if the lien is appropriate, if there's a legitimate dispute, the dispute needs to be addressed. Sure. And most contractors understand that there's usually flexibility on both sides. It ought to be resolved short of someone losing their house.
Right.
That's how it ought to be resolved.
We do have a caller on the line, and I believe it's from Enterprise, Alabama. Yvonne, go ahead with your call, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Yvonne Lawhorn, and I'm calling from Enterprise, Alabama. And my question is about a medical procedure that I had done. It was called prolapse rectum, and part of it, the operation failed. I contacted the surgeon. She doesn't seem to be concerned with my problem. What I was really wondering is if I can file a lawsuit against her.
Okay. Yvonne, that's a very good question. It's a very fair question, because if you feel like you've been wronged in any type of incident, if there's a action, whether it's an automobile accident or even a medical malpractice case, you always have the right, whether you seek an attorney or you do it yourself, which it means you're doing it pro se, to file a claim against someone. Now, there are defenses to certain actions, and things can be dismissed if there was no cause of action, so to speak. In your particular situation, you're dealing with a medical malpractice issue, and there's a certain standard that you have to meet, and it has to do with, was there a breach in the standard of care? Would a normal physician under that, that would have normally done a procedure like that, what would he or she done that was different than what your surgeon performed it on you? So you have a reasonableness that you have to address, okay? If you don't even breach that threshold, you don't really have a case, no matter how bad something's happened to you. There's a lot of doctors that have terrible bedside manner, and sometimes that bad bedside manner makes you feel like something's been done inappropriately, or maybe they committed malpractice. In all essence, they really didn't. They just don't know how to communicate with you properly. I'm not going to ask you any more questions on the air, but we will give you a call tomorrow morning, because medical cases, when you're dealing with malpractice, there's a lot of medical records that we actually have to obtain, and a lot of information that we have to get from you. So if you'll be free to give us, we'll give you a call tomorrow morning and address those with you. But typically speaking, you do have a right to file a claim against someone. Now, it all depends on whether or not that claim rises to a cause of action that would award you damages, and was there any wrongdoing committed by that physician. But like I say, those cases are extremely in-depth, and they're not like a rear-end collision, Doug, where you can prove fault real easily and then you have your medical damages. Medical malpractice are very voluminous and intricate in nature, because you have a lot of medical records you have to go through and hire expert witnesses to give testimony to what a doctor should or should not have done, and compare that in light of what your physician did. So, Yvonne, thank you for listening. Thank you for calling us, and we'll be glad to address that with you tomorrow morning and get more information from you. We're going to go to our first break of the evening. The phone lines are still open, 850-392-1544, or you can always email us at lawcall@WMBB.com. It's Ask Us Anything. I'm Chris Young, and I've got attorney Doug Smith with us. We'll be back in just a moment. And welcome back to Law Call. I'm attorney Chris Young with the law firm of Perry & Young, and I've got attorney Doug Smith with me tonight, and we're answering questions. It's Ask Us Anything, Doug.
It's wide open.
And if
wide
you have
open.
questions, feel free to give us a call. We'll try to get you an answer to your question. If not, we can always call you or respond back to you during the week with more information about your case. Yvonne just called in moments ago, and she was addressing medical malpractice. And, you know, Doug, those cases are very involved, to say the least.
Yeah.
Now you've been practicing law how many years?
34.
All right, so you have 34 years of experience to know that medical malpractice cases are very intricate, and not any firm will handle that. So, Yvonne, what I wanted to point out to you also is make sure that if we're unable to help you, that there's a firm out there that could help you, because not all firms take medical malpractice cases, nor do they have the ability to take those cases. Sometimes they can get very expensive. Hiring experts and trying to prove your case, and they can also become very time consuming as well. So I think, Doug, you're talking during the break, like, man, you forgot to tell them that everybody just doesn't do that.
Well, and I just know that because it's way outside my swim lane, but I just know that not all personal injury firms do med mal, because it is so complicated. Right. It's document intensive. It's just they're just a lot harder than a typical personal injury
Thank
case.
goodness for Larry Perry.
We were both saying
yes.
Larry Perry would know the medical terms that Yvonne was talking about.
He would be able to address that.
But I hope Yvonne's doing okay, because obviously it's never, you hate to hear anyone say I had an operation and it didn't work, so I hope she'll get some relief somehow.
It's Ask Us Anything tonight. Phone lines are open, 392-1544. You can always email us at lawcall@wmbb.com. We did have someone email during the break, and their email question, I think they sent me here we go. I was backing out of a parking spot and another driver backed into me. The report claims I was at fault. I don't see how. Obviously the guy was going too fast in reverse. What should I do? Trey. Well, Trey, if you don't feel like you are at fault in the accident, you can always contact the investigating officer that responded to the accident and try to provide them with testimony or some type of evidence to show that you are not at fault in the accident. Now, a lot of times officers do not have enough time, or maybe they don't take enough time to interview witnesses. So if you have another witness that was there that could actually prove that you were not at fault, or maybe you had maybe the parking lot camera at the parking lot could give you some evidence. But if you don't feel like you're responsible, you can always retain an attorney, and they can actually help you get the evidence that you need. But in addition to your car being damaged, I'm sure you're aggravated a little bit about being claimed that you were at fault, but the other person was at fault. So you've got that issue also. But you also make sure that you don't have any personal injuries associated with this claim. Doug, I'm sure that you've seen it over 34 years. I know that I've seen it over 34 years. Some of your most minor accidents can cause some of the most severe injuries that you can actually have. I mean, we've actually had people who have been involved in minor fender benders or rear-end collisions and be discharged from a hospital and actually be discharged with a broken vertebrae in their neck. So basically they had a broken neck, or a broken back. And so if you feel like, that it rises to that level, by all means, please make sure that you seek medical attention, and at least go to the ER, get treated, because it triggers something under the PIP statute. No matter if you were at fault or if the other individual was at fault in this accident, or this collision, I should say, we're a no-fault state. And that is one of the confusing, good, bad things about PIP insurance, is that no matter who's at fault in an accident, you're entitled to $10,000 worth of personal injury protection benefits. However, if you do not file a claim or actually go get treated within 14 days of this incident, your $10,000 that you have been paying for forever gets reduced down to $2,500, Doug. So by all means, make sure that you go at least get seen by a physician if you think you're feeling differently from the actual collision, because the last thing you want to do is add insult to injury and not have enough benefits to help you.
And you know what that email question made me think of? A lot of viewers don't know that you, Chris Young, are an expert on all things automotive.
Yes.
You know vehicles and everything, and you're always looking at me saying, Doug, why are you driving those old junkers
I don't say that now, come on.
that don't have backup cameras?
Well, maybe
because when I back up, you know, I might have a beep, 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 or, you know, my mirrors, but I don't have a backup camera, and those are nice.
Your wife is going to get on to me if you make her think that she drives around an old beater now.
But I tell you what, those backup cameras are a brilliant invention.
They are.
I mean, seriously.
They are. And they're
safety
they're so advanced now that actually they can stop a vehicle if they think that you're about to approach or hit something or cause a collision. So absolutely, backup cameras are wonderful. I'm not going to go so far as to say that you drive junky vehicles or dilapidated vehicles.
They're old.
They're old vehicles. Get a new one.
Yeah,
You've been practicing law for 34 years.
Yeah, I should
get one for 35. But anyways, if you feel like if you feel differently from this accident, by all means, make sure that you get some medical treatment because you don't want your benefits reduced.
And how do they, Chris? Think about it. If two people are both getting in their cars in a parking lot and they're like me, they don't have a backup camera, and they just start real slowly backing out, and then boom, how do you assign fault? It's tricky.
Well,
it's
in
not
a situation
easy.
like that, you don't actually have to assign fault.
Yeah.
But if you were the person that was found to be at fault and you don't think so, that's where it gets a little insulting for you. And I'm sure that you want your car fixed, but at the same time, you don't want to not know your rights and assume that you have protection, and then maybe 3 weeks later or 4 weeks later, you're feeling a little sore in your back, or you're feeling a little sore in your neck, and you go you go see a chiropractor or some type of primary care physician, or at least even the emergency room, and you let them know that you're involved in an accident. You're not going to have the benefits that you would normally have been entitled to, and that was something that they slipped into the law a few years ago, trying to reduce the claims that were being filed, even though you have a contract of insurance, and that contract says, hey, you got $10,000 and you're going to pay this premium based on $10,000 worth of insurance, but when you need it, you're only going to have $2,500. So that's unfortunate. We're going to take our last break of the evening. We'll be back in just a moment. The phone lines are open still, 850-392-1544, or you can always email us at lawcall@wmbv.com. Be back in just a moment. Law Call. We're in our last segment of the evening. Doug, we've got about three and a half minutes left before we have to wrap the show up, but we do have a caller on the line, Amber from Panama City, with a property question. Amber, go ahead with your question, please.
Yes, we have a piece of property that's adjacent to us that has a fish pond and and there's 4 people that own this piece of property. And So other people are letting children drive their golf cart on it without asking us, because there's something that could happen if them children get hurt on our property.
Okay, are you, I believe I understand that you might be a partial owner of the property as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to pass you off to Doug, and Doug, can you answer this question in probably 90 seconds, other than just you need to come in and hire a seat to talk more in depth about it?
Well, I think it is. It's tricky because the ownership of the property, 4 different owners. But you can, if you're one of the owners, you can look into getting insurance, liability insurance, to protect yourself while all this is sorted out. Because there's lots of things you can do with multiple owners,
right.
Partition action, whatever, or someone buys out the others, whatever. Lots of things to do, but I think she should look into insurance and talk to an attorney about what you can do otherwise about the ownership and such.
Amber, to piggyback on that, there's a few courses of action that you can actually take, and it can actually get in depth because you have a probate issue talking about ownership of multiple people, that if the property was inherited, who actually are the owners, if you're going to have conflicting owners giving conflicting opinions. Doug's immediate safeguard was, hey, get insurance because that will protect you in the short run. Mm-hmm. As you seek your action, you seek a resolution, because if you are forced to do a partition action, that can actually wind up good or bad for you depending on what the value of the property is and if you've got the necessary means to maintain the property. So by all means, please seek out an attorney that does property law. I think Doug gave you some sage advice there. In the meantime and in the short term, see if you can obtain some insurance on the property that will actually protect you and any other owners. But while you're doing that, actually go sit down with an attorney and let them review the documents of how ownership was transferred, and look at some options as to what you can do to limit your liability. But that's a great question. Thank you for calling in and watching the show. Doug, I believe we got to wrap it up, buddy. You and I are riding a high. LSU brought home a victory last night. We got 1 minute for shout outs. So I've got a list here. Do you got anybody you want to say hello to other than the Tigers?
There's one I got to do, and I told you this before, Chris. I'm so proud of Perry and Young for helping our little soccer league, Bay County Youth Soccer Association. You've helped them for the last 4 or 5 seasons, $2,500 a season. You're a major sponsor of the soccer league, and I was, thinking I ought to get that message out, but I don't do social media. I don't do Facebook. I don't Twitter. I don't whatever those other things are. I don't do any of that. So I'm just telling you on TV, thank you for you guys helping us for all these seasons. The children love it.
I'm going to run this down. I've got Ashley, my mom, Trey Smith, Judy Smith, Gary Starr, Miss Pam Myers, and Donna. I saw you at On the Fly this past week having lunch, and she said, hey, you're the guy on LawCall. And I said, yes, I am. So thank you for watching, and Doug, thank you for the nice compliment, buddy. We never do it for the glory or the praise. We do it to help people, and we really sincerely mean that. And thank you for saying those kind words about us.
It's always fun hanging out with you, Chris.
Thanks, brother. Same time, same place next week. See you then.